right, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you aboard the, debate special, the CNN debate special. It's the Democrat debate. We did this here on Newsmax TV, of course, following the last Republican debate. But tonight it was the Democratic candidates on stage for the first time from Las Vegas. And, of course, you know what goes down in Las Vegas doesn't stay there, not in this case. Lots to get to. I am joined, of course, for our special coverage by Rick Unger, co-host of The Daily Wrap, and, of course, Newsmax political analyst Dick Morris. Dick, let me start with you. The debate is still ongoing, of course, but what are your impressions of what you have seen so far in the, I guess, hour and a half that it's been going on?
I think this has been a transformational debate. A gigantic win for Bernie Sanders and a gigantic loss for Hillary Clinton. Not be at all surprised if in the post-debate polling, Sanders has way caught up to Clinton and perhaps even tied with her. There were really three key issues that emerged: peace, banking, and guns. Sanders lost on guns, but he scored heavily on the issue of peace and the issue of banking and the inequality in the top 1%, very heavily. And I think that he completely vanquished Hillary on that. I also think having four people talking who are not named Hillary reduced her airtime to a point where she seemed almost tangential to her own debate. This debate was a disaster for Mrs. Clinton.
Rick, you know, you and I sat next to each other in the newsroom and watched, and I said, not as eloquently, but I said very similar things to what Dick Morris said. I thought that she was marginalized, she had nothing to add, nothing to say, in many cases seemed insignificant standing up there.
Well, not surprisingly, I think I watched a different debate than Dick, and maybe you. I don't know. I thought Bernie did do well. I agree with Dick on that. I also thought Hillary did well. What impressed me about Hillary tonight was she obviously had the right answers when asked the harder questions, but she also knew, it seemed to me, when to stay out of a discussion and when to jump into the discussion. So I thought that was interesting. For me, what was interesting was how badly the other three candidates looked. I kind of had a sense that maybe one of them would gain some attention, where tomorrow we'd wake up and people would be adding one more person to the list of who they're talking about for the Democrats. That's just not what happened. The three of them just seemed odd. I heard somebody in the newsroom use the word weird, and I thought that was appropriate. So I think that what we'll see is not a big change in the polls. I think the people who support Bernie Sanders will continue to, and the people who support Hillary Clinton will continue to. And then let's not quickly forget Barack Obama, who everybody went out of their way to call the greatest president that ever lived. He's obviously popular with the Democrats.
Well, it's interesting. Go ahead, Dick.
I think that you're missing the basic point. This Democratic primary is going to be a contest of issues, not a personality. Sanders is going to make it that. When Sanders gave Hillary a pass on emails, he basically sent a message to the base that said, you don't have to think she's a criminal to vote for me. You can like Hillary, be opposed to the email scandal, think it's a partisan witch hunt, and still vote for me.
Well, that'd be one way to look at it.
Clear delineation over the issue of war and peace, no-fly zone, the vote on Iraq. There was a clear delineation on the top 1%, repeal of Glass-Steagall, too big to fail, the TARP bailout. And on those delineations, Hillary is on the short end of that stick. And I believe that she came across as a lukewarm defender of Wall Street, a pity-pat critic of it. She came across, I thought, as a hawk. And I think Sanders absolutely created a viable political base for himself. Don't forget, probably 80% of the people, 90% of the people who saw this debate had not previously seen Sanders speak, and except for maybe a 5-second soundbite here or there.
Right. And
this prolonged impression will really change the Democratic primary.
Right. And Rick, you know, I mean, this is a Democratic primary debate. and you know what the Democratic Party has become. And there's also a point where they all call themselves progressives, including Hillary, which we'll get to in a second. But if you're talking to progressives, I agree with Dick that Hillary looked hawkish. Hillary said, I went to Wall Street and I asked them to please do the right thing. And Bernie Sanders said, you can't ask them to do the right thing. You have to act. I think he appealed to the Democrat base.
Yeah, I think the Democrat base is a little wider than people want to give him credit for. But what I thought was particularly interesting, Dick's interpretation interests me, where he feels that Bernie Sanders was saying to potential voters, it's okay, you don't have to vote for Hillary, you can vote for me, and she's still not a criminal. I viewed that a bit differently. To me, it came across as him saying, it's okay to vote for Hillary, she's not a criminal. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Dick could be right. I could be right. I'm not sure.
He was setting up a price of admission to his candidacy.
We'll
he
see.
was saying that you don't have to believe Hillary ought to go to jail. You don't have to want to tune into the Benghazi hearing. You don't have to believe any of it. You can still believe Hillary Clinton is honest and trustworthy and a good person and vote for me because of substantive disagreements. And I think that that's exactly where he needed to be.
I will agree
By the way,
with
as to the other three candidates, they were blockers on the football field. The ball carrier, Sanders, did just fine. But their blocks sure helped.
All right, let's go to the conversation on guns, Hillary and Bernie Sanders, and here is that exchange.
Secretary Clinton, is Bernie Sanders tough enough on guns?
No, not at all. I think that we have to look at the fact that we lose 90 people a day from gun violence. This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
As a senator from a rural state, what I can tell Secretary Clinton, that all the shouting in the world is not going to do what I would hope all of us want, and that is keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have those guns and end this horrible violence that we are seeing.
And basically what Bernie Sanders was alluding to, and he didn't only have to face Hillary on this, but of course that was the key exchange, was that he came from a rural state. And it's different in New York, it's different in Maryland, it's different in big cities compared to the rest of the country. And Bernie Sanders said, I want to bring everybody together so that we could make a change, make a difference. And if you don't understand that there are differences, you're not going to get there, Dick.
That was a terrible answer that Sanders gave. By setting up the stupid urban-rural distinction, he admitted that he's weak on gun control, just like Hillary admitted, in effect, she's weak on Wall Street, and admitted, in effect, that she's a hawk. The important thing about these debates is not that it persuades anyone, not even the image of the candidate, but that it's a chance for both candidates to stipulate to the issue positions they'll then fight the race about. And Sanders made a big mistake in stipulating to the gun issue. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have tried to excuse his votes. On the other hand, the issues of war and peace and the top 1% in inequality in Wall Street, I think will be more important than guns in the Democratic primary. But Sanders really lost that exchange on guns.
It's a debate. People try to have it both ways. You were correct in something you said earlier. Hillary did straddle between am I a moderate or am I a progressive? I think you're right. Bernie Sanders tried to do the same thing there. He tried to straddle the situation he finds himself in. Not surprising. But I got to tell you, Dick, I have to disagree on this war and peace thing. Yes, you're right. The very progressive base doesn't like any wars, doesn't want any involvement anywhere. But you know what? Hillary, I suspect, is confident enough as to her ability to get the nomination, barring indictments and things like that, that she's also playing to the general population out there who views it very differently, as you know. They don't want a president who's afraid to do anything when we need to do it. And I think that's what she was going for. And I think she'll score on that.
All right, I want you
You're absolutely right. She's trying to win the second election and losing the first one.
I don't think she's as worried as you are.
Trying to be centrist on that. Look, when I worked for President Clinton, there was a center in the electorate. There was 30 or 40% of the vote that was swing, that could go one way or the other. And there were wild oscillations in who voted for what. Now the swing vote in this country is down below 10%. It's two armed camps. And they become polarized, and each have become relatively extremist. There ain't no room in the middle. And Hillary is trying to straddle that middle. And when you combine the people that will vote against her because they don't like her and don't trust her, with the new group, those that don't agree with her, she's not going to win this primary.
All right, now here's
And by
what.
the way,
I'm
the
sorry.
other guy who
Yeah.
wasn't there, Joe Biden,
Yeah.
was all over that Obama clip, gives voters who even think Sanders is a little too much a place to go against Hillary.
No question.
And what Dick is
That I
alluding
agree.
to is that at the beginning, right before the debate itself started, CNN played a video message from President Obama, who was touting all of his accomplishments during the 8 years he's been in office and saying, you know, we'll hand it off to somebody. But Joe Biden was seen in the background and in that video clip an awful lot. So, Dick,
At least 4 times. I
yeah.
count.
So you think that was a purposeful occurrence?
You bet it was.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this one I'm with you, Dick. I was thinking this throughout the entire debate. There is such a slot open between Hillary and Bernie, and there's one guy to fill that slot. You think he's sitting there tonight thinking the same thing?
Well, I think he's sitting there tonight thinking 2 things. One is there's a slot and I could run. But the more important thing is every Democratic leader in the country is looking at that debate and saying, holy cow, and I'm not saying cow, Sanders could win the nomination. And if Sanders wins the nomination, we are in desperate, terrible shape.
But you don't believe he
And
can.
therefore,
Come on.
they're going to be begging Biden to get into this race.
But here, you know, I agree with everybody, Dick and Rick, who said that, you know, Hillary was not only playing to the base here in the party, but also was trying to win the general election. Maybe Dick is right, at the expense of losing people in her attempt to win this primary season. But here's what she said when she was asked about, is she a liberal, is she a progressive, and it's cut number 4.
Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
No, I think that, like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience. And I don't take a backseat to anyone when it comes to progressive experience and progressive commitment.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who likes to get things done.
All right, so Dick, is that help her or hurt her?
I think that that definitional stuff doesn't matter much. I think that what matters is the specific issues. And on Wall Street and Peace, as I've said,
Right.
she really put herself at variance with the Democratic electorate. When you have a candidate for president in a Democratic primary that essentially defends the Glass-Steagall Act, or essentially defends the TARP bailout, or essentially defends the Iraq war, or urges a no-fly zone over Syria, they're in the wrong debate. They should have been in the Republican debate.
Yeah. And of course, Webb was it looked like he didn't even belong there. He's what, I think he actually alluded to it, he's what the Democrat Party used to be. We are joined right now.
That was what it still was. I'd be a Democrat.
That's when he wasn't complaining about not getting enough airtime.
Yeah, well, that's true too. All right, well, although he wasn't called on much